This is one of the things that I brought up. One of the temples that they scanned with this was very accurate. And he's like, but this was only 50 feet down. Like, yeah, okay, right, but it works. Like, at 50 feet down, you get an accurate representation of what's inside there, and he was the one, Zahi, supposedly, discovered it. But he's discovered everything, basically.
Yeah.
So how do you...
Genius.
He's the best. So,
but the good thing is that Graham can go back to Egypt now.
Yes. Yeah.
So they patched up something.
Yeah, well, that was one of the reasons why Zahi came on.
Oh, really?
Graham talked to Zahi, and like, Zahi wants to do this. We're friends now. I was like, bring him in. Let's go. So apparently, through the use of LiDAR, they have discovered that there are enormous structures underneath the Great Pyramid that go kilometers deep into the earth with coils. So enormous pillars, and then these coils. They don't understand what it is because they're just looking at LiDAR images. But whatever this is a uniform structure. There's several pillars, and all of this is like very, very, very weird.
Yeah, it's 600 meters descending down those cylinders, and then there's more stuff below it, and then there's additional structures inside of it. Yeah, that was crazy.
It's really crazy.
So this is pretty much breaking news because the new findings were announced on the 16th of March at a press conference held by the team who was studying the Great Pyramid of Giza with a non-invasive technology. The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock. In fact, over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers. Massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far.
I went there last July.
Did you?
June.
How was it?
Incredible. Yeah, it was incredible.
Did you walk away thinking immediately, there's a lot we don't know?
100%. Yeah. And what they tell you is complete bullshit.
Yeah. I have a friend who went there, and the archaeologist that showed him it said this is complete bullshit. Like, the narrative is complete bullshit. Yeah. He said the scale of it. He said the scale of it and the technology involved in construction is beyond our current understanding of how to do this.
And it's not just the pyramids and the Sphinx. No. The other temples are magnificent.
Not only that, there's probably a bunch of shit under the ground.
I know. That's what I wanted to go see. But the cool thing was the first temple I went in was what I'd seen on Ancient Aliens, where at the very top of the temple you have one of the most famous hieroglyphs, which has a spaceship, a helicopter, and a submarine up there.
You have a very fascinating hypothesis as to what the pyramid, or theory, as to what the pyramid actually was. Mm-hmm. And it's based on where the supposed king's chamber is, where those passages go through into it. And what do you think that thing was?
Well, my first book pretty much describes what I thought it was in 1998, which was a power plant. The book is entitled The Giza Power Plant. My second book has evolved, and I describe it as an electron harvester. So, it's kind of like, you could describe it as both, but in today, when you do, or, people in any decade, they think of a power plant and they see these huge chimneys with, smokestacks.
Or a nuke plant.
Yeah, or a nuke plant, a power plant, dirty, nasty, unclean. Mm-hmm. But an electron harvester, clean, pollution-free, not a problem.
Has that been achieved conventionally? I mean, today? Is there a thing called an electron harvester?
I think that actually, when you look at a generator, that's an electron harvester, because we don't create electrons, we just harvest them. It's just how we do it. And so, when you say an electron harvester, you could say that, say a wind generator, you have a windmill, mm-hmm. You have a generator inside it, and then you're collecting electrons off the commutator in a generator.
And that's where the electricity comes from.
And that's your electricity.
Right. Or hydroelectric, you'd use the flow of the water.
Yeah, you don't create you just release them.
You harvest it from a
You
process.
harvest them through a process.
If you follow information about humankind, you find out that in all parts of history, people were coming to this region for their information and their knowledge and their things that were forbidden, and these were not these were the highest of human civilization. Here.
Not even comparable to anyone else.
No.
Nor since. Nor
now
since. Nor since.
Right.
The Great Pyramid of Giza is insane.
Right.
It's insane.
Even Tesla says that this is where he came to get the information. But if you follow that information pathway, it leads you to this character called Thoth, right? And the emerald tablets of Thoth are literally mind-changing and mind-blowing, just because you understand when this was written and the terminology being used is
When was it written?
far too accurate for now.
That was the other thing that Zahi was unwilling to entertain, was this King's List. This Zepteki King's List that goes back 30,000 plus years.
Yes.
They all want to pretend that that's a myth, that all the other hieroglyphs are legitimately documenting the history of the region. But when it
not
gets
that one.
past the narrative, these 30,000-year-old kings, that place has probably been there for a long fucking time.
Yeah, probably hundreds of thousands of years.
Which is so crazy.
And it's probably built on other stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about the base of the pyramids. It's like you have to realize there's a base there. Before they put the pyramids up, they put this insane base. And if what they're saying is accurate with these readings, that there's a structure that goes under the ground 2 kilometers,
Yeah, what is that?
if they can find that, then you have to throw everything out the window.
But aren't you with me? Why are we not interested in that?
But we are.
And the process that you think they used in the Great Pyramid involved those shafts?
It involves a lot of things. Yeah, it's not just one single thing. It's a system.
So these names, the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber, you don't think that that's actually a King's Chamber or Queen's Chamber? You think it's something else?
Well, out of respect to the Egyptians, I
Call it what they say
call
it is.
them. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do have a different terminology for them as they function.
Now, the initial surface of the Great Pyramid is covered in smooth limestone, right? So it's polished and shiny, and apparently it would collect insane amounts of light.
The outer surface of the Great Pyramid mostly is missing, and,
Right.
But it has been described as if it was finished, and depending on the polish that it received, yeah, it could reflect a lot of light.
Do you think that had something to do with the design of this power plant?
I don't think there's any part of that pyramid that did not serve a practical function.
Okay, so this is the image that you have here, and what
Right.
this image shows us is the King's Chamber, the various shafts, the southern shaft, the northern shaft, and these shafts have been described as portals to stars because people have looked up through there, and you go through the shaft, you see stars. But what you're saying is something entirely different. What do you think these shafts were for?
Well, I think they serve 2 different purposes. Actually, 4 different purposes, if you will, because in the theory that I propose, which is, I don't know, it's a speculation, a theory. Well, the whole process is kind of like a heuristic process where you're grabbing information, you're moving it. Doesn't matter what source you're getting it from.
Right.
Because when you are looking for answers, you look everywhere. You try and find, you look everywhere. So when I was going through the process of trying to figure it out, I was collecting information from memory.
We know when Khufu built this. We know when Khafre built this. We know who did this. And they're not correct. It's not accurate. It's too weird. There's no way you have all the information. Also, where'd everybody go? Like, there's people living there, but it's clearly not the same civilization. So what happened to this insane civilization? If there wasn't a collapse of society at an immense level, if there wasn't some sort of a civilization destroying event, then where did what happened?
For the southern shaft and the northern shaft of the Queen's Chamber, that was a huge mystery to me, and I tried to fit it into what were they doing? I mean, if you look at the details, the facts of their design and what the ancient Egyptians were doing, why they designed them that way, you have two conduits coming into a chamber, but they're not connected to the chamber. And we didn't even know they existed until 1872 or Wayman Dixon.
Can you show me that image again, please? So they're coming into the chamber, but they don't enter into the chamber. So they stop.
Their original design had the shafts ending 5 inches before coming into the chamber. So you had like 5 inches of limestone that was left in the block.
So did someone remove that limestone?
Yes.
Why did they do that?
Wayman Dixon, because they were examining the chamber and they were poking around. And Wayman Dixon, it is reported, so the legend goes, noticed a crack in the wall. And so he took a rod and pushed it through the crack. And the rod, it didn't meet any resistance, it kept going. So he had his worker come in, Bill Grundy, with a hammer and chisel, and say, chisel the limestone around that.
Yeah, people are stupid. So,
well, they did. Yeah, they didn't have ultrasonic thickness tests.
No, but still, goddamn, to have the arrogance to go and chip away at the pyramid because
well,
you're curious.
Look at how advanced. You know, I don't care for revisionist historians because you know you have to consider what people were doing, their mindset in the day, and then I try to look at on the bright side, right? It's like I don't look at it as a negative thing because if somebody hadn't opened up those shafts, we wouldn't know about them.
Right.
And it's the same with the chambers above the King's Chamber. Without Howard Vyse and his military expedition blasting his way up into the pyramid, we wouldn't know about them either.
If there was any logical explanation that people could have done it, I would be on board. I'd be like, well, okay.
But there aren't any people saying that.
Human beings it's possible if you had enough power and you had enough engineering and mathematics that you could figure out how to design and construct the pyramid.
Yes.
But then the logistical problem of getting the stones from hundreds of miles away, massive, several ton, up to 80-ton stones.
Joe.
That's crazy. 500 miles away, some of them.
Even if you could do it, let me ask you this. Would you build it on sand?
I don't think it was originally sand. See, that's the thing.
Right. This was a fertile valley.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Right.
The Nile Valley. That
was
the reason
they had
why they
electric and Wi-Fi, and they had all of that.
They probably did. And that's probably where the Younger Dryas impact theory comes in.
The greatest trick is to make us believe that people back then were dumber and we're smarter.
Right.
And that whole thing is a fallacy.
Yeah, that's definitely not real.
But it's worth it for us to believe that.
I think we are the children of the survivors of some great catastrophe. And I think that's why every single
not everybody
biblical scholar. What?
Not everybody. Some people.
What do you mean?
Are that.
Some people are the survivors?
Right.
Well, I mean, most human beings probably got wiped out in comet storms. And I think we probably got... There's been points in history that they know of where human beings got down to like 7,000 people. If these shafts came through and then they met limestone at the end, what do you think was going on?
In order to answer that question, I had to look at the rest of the pyramid, okay? What was it doing? And how was it functioning? And so one of the key pieces of evidence that I used to propose a process that was going on is the northern shaft. And the northern shaft has dimensions and has an appearance that is similar to a waveguide that you would use for microwave. And the dimensions of it would approximate the wavelength of hydrogen.
Explain a waveguide. How does that work?
Yeah, it's like a waveguide is to transmit microwaves, electromagnetic energy, in the microwave region, and it is passed more efficiently through like a tube or waveguide. That's what they use. I mean, they're very complicated systems.
Joe Rogan drops a shocking theory about Egypt's pyramids that will change everything you know about history. In his latest podcast, Joe reveals these iconic structures might be hidden power sources.
They found wooden structures that were 500,000 years old. This is very wild.
Not mere tombs. Imagine giant stone energy generators built to harness mysterious forces, channeling power through secret chambers and shafts.
The initial surface of the Great Pyramid is covered in smooth limestone.
Rogan's bold claims challenge traditional views and spark a lively conversation about ancient technology and lost wisdom. Get ready to see the pyramids in a whole new light now. Historical background of the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Giza, standing on the Giza Plateau in Egypt, has been a subject of wonder for thousands of years. It is believed by many scholars to have been constructed around the early to mid-26th century BCE during the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. This period in ancient Egypt is often regarded as an era of impressive architectural and organizational skill, standing as proof that these early builders had complex ideas about design, planning, and engineering. The pyramid is widely attributed to Pharaoh Khufu, also known as Cheops, whose full name was Khnum Khufu. Although his reign is not documented in extensive detail in every aspect, the Great Pyramid remains the most visible piece of evidence for his time on the throne. When new visitors see the Great Pyramid, they are often struck by its size and complexity. Current measurements place its height at about 139 meters, though some researchers suggest that erosion and the loss of its smooth casing stones mean it was once closer to 146 or 147 meters in height. Each side of its base is about 230 meters in length. Built with an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, this structure has drawn wide-ranging interest from archaeologists, engineers, architects, and curious laypeople alike. The entire Giza Plateau includes two other main pyramids, those attributed to Khafra and Menkaure, as well as the Sphinx, multiple smaller Queen's pyramids, and various causeways and temples. Despite the millennium-spanning gap between the original construction and our modern era, the Great Pyramid continues to present mysteries. Many older accounts suggest that the structure was covered in polished Tura limestone that would have given it a striking reflective surface in bright sunlight. When thinking about how the ancient Egyptians managed to transport and place so many massive blocks with what is assumed to be Bronze Age technology, people throughout history have sometimes attached mystical or futuristic explanations to its building. Traditional archaeology still favors the idea that it was a royal tomb, consistent with funerary practices of ancient Egypt. Tombs from later eras had internal decorations, but the Great Pyramid's interior, at least in what is openly accessible, is relatively plain, which has fueled further speculation. Since the mid-19th century, Western researchers have tried to understand every aspect of the Great Pyramid by carefully measuring its passages, angles, and corridor. Findings have been shared, debated, and sometimes debunked. Throughout the years, explorers and archaeologists have contributed to mapping chambers, vents, and suspected pathways. Early X-ray style approaches and more recent scanning with advanced technology have given new dimensions to the ongoing debate about the pyramid's possible unknown internal features. Traditional ideas on the pyramid's purpose. The standard position held by most Egyptologists is that the Great Pyramid of Giza was designed and built as a tomb for King Khufu. This view is supported in part by the location of the pyramid within a system that includes funerary temples, causeways, and boat pits. Researchers note that other pharaohs of the 4th dynasty, namely Khafre and Menkaure, are credited with their own monumental pyramids near Khufu's, all aligned on the Giza Plateau. According to mainstream experts, these structures followed the advanced architectural achievements of earlier step pyramids, such as that of Djoser in Saqqara, with each iteration showing the progression of design from a stepped layout to a smooth-sided style. Hierarchy and cultural practice in ancient Egypt were strongly tied to beliefs in the afterlife. Bodies of pharaohs, who were viewed as living gods on earth, needed to be preserved and cared for in elaborate tomb complexes to facilitate their journey beyond death. Mummification, funerary goods, and well-prepared burial sites were crucial to ensuring safe passage into the next realm. This belief system is reinforced by the presence of older and smaller pyramids built as clear tomb, complete with burial chambers and corridors leading from entrance points to the final resting place of the king or queen. Supporters of the royal tomb view consider the Great Pyramid to be an ultimate expression of this funerary concept. While there is no formal record of a mummy ever being found in the Great Pyramid itself, many mainstream Egyptologists explain that tomb robbing was common over the centuries. They propose that any original remains or burial goods likely disappeared long before modern time. The presence of the so-called King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber, and Grand Gallery is often interpreted as functional spaces within a funerary layout, possibly with hidden compartments for valuables meant to accompany the deceased king in death. Blocks of stone above the king's chamber, seen in the relieving chambers, might have been constructed not for any power-generating purpose, but for practical engineering reasons to distribute weight and keep the main chamber intact. Additionally, mainstream archaeologists point to worker villages and harbor sites that helped feed and house the large labor force needed to build such a tomb. Artifacts, hieroglyphs, and practical references to construction logistics are usually seen as evidence for an organized state system pulling resources from across the country. The consistent design across different dynasties' pyramids further strengthens the conventional interpretation that these monumental buildings were meant to be kingly tombs while honoring deities and cosmic alignments relevant to the afterlife. Still, the idea that Khufu's pyramid served as the apex of tomb building does not close the door to its unique features. The Great Pyramid's interior ratio, the tight precision of its angles, and the now-gone outer casings create a puzzle for many, even among traditional researchers who hold that it served a funerary function. Designers and engineers from later periods had not repeated certain design aspects, and that in itself is sometimes viewed as evidence of Khufu's pyramid being different from the norm. The Great Pyramid remains a focal point for understanding not only a pharaoh's ambitions, but also ancient Egyptian skill in mathematics, surveying, and logistics. Papyri found at Wadi al-Jaf, for instance, mention boat crews delivering limestone for the Great Pyramid's building, adding historical context to how mainstream thinkers place it into the tomb-building tradition. Christopher Dunn and the Giza power plant idea. Among the alternative theorists who have gained attention for his detailed engineering-based approach. He is best known for his book, The Giza Power Plant: Technologies of Ancient Egypt, published in 1998, in which he proposes that the Great Pyramid functioned as a type of power-generating station. His theory stems from his background in manufacturing and engineering, leading him to analyze the pyramid with a focus on what he sees as mechanical or energetic features, rather than religious or purely funerary elements. In Dunn's view, the internal structure of the pyramid, especially the so-called King's Chamber and the various shafts, suggests a sophisticated design meant to harness vibrational energy or microwaves. He looked at the granite used in the King's Chamber and thought about the piezoelectric properties of quartz crystals. In his speculation, the vibrations that might be set off by Earth's movement or other natural sources could be channeled through the pyramid's corridor. Working much like a resonant cavity, these vibrations could then be converted into usable energy. Although mainstream scholars see such claims as unfounded, Dunn's theories caught the interest of many who questioned standard tomb explanations. Later, Dunn refined his ideas to describe the pyramid as an electron harvester, using more modern terms to capture how he believed it drew in energy from natural sources without creating pollution or harmful byproducts. He reasoned that human-made processes, like chemical reactions, could have released hydrogen inside the pyramid, and that specialized waveguide structures might have helped amplify or direct energy in the form of microwave. Since actual waveguides for microwaves are carefully shaped in modern technology, Dunn highlighted the geometry of the northern shaft of the pyramid and how it might match the wavelength of hydrogen at around 8.309 inches. He argued that everything inside the pyramid, down to precise angles and stone choices, contributed to this process. Skeptics point out that there is no direct physical evidence of piping for chemicals, electrodes, or any mechanical apparatus that would be required to operate such a power system. Still, Dunn's research does incorporate detailed measurements, references to potential cracks or expansions in stone that might resonate, and alternative uses of the so-called ventilation shafts. He presents these observations as a coordinated system designed to collect currents akin to how a modern generator collects electrons without actually creating them from nothing. Although mainstream archaeologists usually do not regard Dunn's theory as plausible in the context of 4th Dynasty Egypt, it has struck a chord with people who suspect that ancient societies knew more about energy and engineering than the historical record universally acknowledges. The Giza power plant idea can be grouped with several other theories that attempt to show how precision-engineered ancient artifacts or buildings had a use beyond ceremonial or funerary functions. Waveguide and electron harvester concepts. Christopher Dunn's reference to waveguides centers on modern electromagnetics. Waveguides are metal or dielectric structures carefully shaped to direct and contain electromagnetic waves, particularly at microwave frequencies. They keep the wave from dispersing and reduce energy loss. In the pyramid context, Dunn and some supporters argue that the northern shaft might fit the dimensions of a waveguide tuned for hydrogen. Hydrogen's resonant frequency is near 1,420 megahertz, corresponding to a wavelength of about 21 centimeters, although Dunn focuses on a smaller measure in inches, linked to certain waveguide cross-sections. For an electron harvesting system, the thinking goes that you do not really generate new electrons. You gather them by guiding and converting existing sources of energy. Conventional power plants also do something similar, whether the plant is coal-fired, nuclear, wind-based, or hydroelectric. They simply harness the movement or reaction of matter to excite electrons and move them through a circuit. Applying this framework to the Great Pyramid implies that some process inside the pyramid was built to stimulate hydrogen molecule, which could then release or amplify microwave energy, eventually sending that amplified energy out through another shaft or chamber. In principle, an electron harvester would be a self-sustaining, clean energy mechanism, at least if you assume a constant supply of some fueling agent or a natural phenomenon that could be tapped indefinitely. Skeptics note that all known waveguide systems require very deliberate engineering choices, including specific materials and consistent shapes. The interior of the pyramid is made of limestone and granite, not metal or modern composite materials that typically serve in waveguide assemblies. Some might point out that the angled shape of the shafts is not obviously well suited for stable wave propagation. Dunn's view asserts that ancient engineers might have used advanced acoustic and vibrational knowledge instead of modern metallurgical standards. He suggests that the geometry of these stone corridors, combined with certain natural properties of granite, was enough to accomplish the effect. The large quantities of hydrogen gas needed would also require robust production methods. Dunn proposed that chemicals could have been fed to generate hydrogen, but no direct archaeological evidence supports large-scale chemical handling in that chamber. Traditional scholars interpret the function of the Queen's Chamber in alignment with either symbolic or secondary burial use. Others find it curious that the Queen's Chamber shafts were initially closed off at both ends, raising doubts about whether they ever vented or connected in a mechanical sense. Muon tomography and other scanning methods. In recent years, one important method for investigating the Great Pyramid and other sealed monuments is muon tomography. Muons are subatomic particles formed when cosmic rays strike Earth's atmosphere. They rain down from above, passing through matter in measurable ways. By placing detectors in certain positions, scientists can measure how many muons pass through the pyramid and build a three-dimensional map indicating areas of different density. This approach has already revealed an unexpected large cavity above the Grand Gallery, sometimes called the Big Void. Researchers speculate it might be another chamber, a gap left by design, or empty areas that reduce structural stress. Tomography gained prominence in the mid-2010s through a project led by an international team from Japan, France, and Egypt. Their findings, published in peer-reviewed journals, showed distinct anomalies in the Great Pyramid's interior. While they did not conclude that these anomalies prove anything like a hidden power system, the results do spark interest in the possibility that new rooms or corridors still lie undiscovered. Traditional archaeologists see these voids as a chance to refine their understanding of how the pyramid was built, as well as to find potential artifacts or inscriptions sealed away for millennia. Beyond muons, additional scanning technologies, including advanced radar, infrared thermography, and other forms of remote sensing, have been used to locate structural differences. Infrared scans can show temperature anomalies on the pyramid's surface, hinting at voids or conduction differences behind the outer stones. Radar-based tools, if able to penetrate deeply, might detect subterranean or internal structures without drilling. These scans are carefully done in cooperation with Egyptian authorities, who are sensitive about preserving the integrity of these world-famous monuments. These emerging tools have led to new claims from outside the mainstream as well. Certain individuals interpret raw data to suggest the presence of large-scale systems, while official statements are typically more conservative. Some experts push back against jumping to sensational conclusions about entire hidden networks of tunnel or advanced machines. Nonetheless, the interest in technology-aided research on the Giza Plateau continues to rise, spurred by the hope that definitive evidence of new spaces or features could rewrite parts of what we believe about the pyramid era. The matter of how to act on these scanning results remains a challenge. Drilling or physically opening a newly detected void could pose risks to the pyramid's structural integrity. There is also a historic tradition of wanting to avoid intrusive methods that might cause harm or spark controversy regarding disturbance of a monument considered a major cultural treasure. The claimed deep structures underneath. A very recent claim that has drawn widespread online attention is the suggestion of enormous systems underneath the Great Pyramid, going hundreds of meters below ground and possibly extending for kilometers. According to reports referencing synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography, seismic background noise, or other deep imaging tools, these proposed substructures supposedly include pillars or coils arranged in a uniform pattern. Some say these formations might be part of an advanced array that descends more than 600 meters under the pyramid's base, tying in with absolutely massive networks up to 2 kilometers below the surface. People presenting these new claims on social media share videos, alleged scans, and breakdowns, often accompanied by animated diagrams. Enthusiasts say this is evidence of a hidden technological complex or a storage area that dwarfs known subterranean features such as the pyramid's subterranean chamber. Others go so far as to propose that the ancient Egyptians, or even some unknown earlier civilization, developed intricate devices or labyrinths to serve an advanced function, whether spiritual, energetic, or mechanical. This notion lines up with the older trope of there being vast tunnels all over the Giza Plateau, forming an intricate labyrinth. However, well-known Egyptologists like Zahi Hawass have spoken dismissively about these bold statements. Hawass, a major voice in Egyptian archaeology, calls many of these suggestions unfounded. The official stance is that recognized scanning efforts have not yielded verifiable proof of such a deep, multi-kilometer network. Professionals in the field often assert that some images or interpretations circulating online may be misread data, technical artifacts, or distortions. They remind audiences that verifying such claims would require systematic, peer-reviewed work and close collaboration with Egyptian authorities, who maintain a high level of oversight. The excitement related to deep structures partially arises from the fact that the Giza area is known to contain healthy layers of limestone bedrock. The so-called coils might turn out to be natural geological formations. Most official institutions dealing with Egyptian antiquities ask for caution and require rigorous confirmations before endorsing large-scale announcements. Meanwhile, those who believe in the authenticity of these deep coil systems see them as more evidence that ancient peoples possessed engineering powers not recognized by orthodoxy. Some even connect these claims to the waveguide or power plant theories, speculating that the Great Pyramid was only the visible tip of a vast subterranean instrument. Synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. Synthetic aperture radar, SAR, Doppler tomography is an imaging method that relies on radar signal and the motion of either the target or the radar platform to reconstruct detailed images. Typically used in applications like satellite mapping of Earth's surface, it can also be adapted for specialized underground or through-wall imaging. When combined with advanced data processing, it can help produce three-dimensional maps of structures that are otherwise difficult to see. The technology is built on sending out radar pulses, then capturing the returned echoes reflected from objects or different layers of material. By moving the transmitter or receiver, or by using multiple vantage points, a computer can synthesize a larger aperture, effectively creating a higher resolution image than a single vantage point would allow. In the context of the Great Pyramid, variations of SAR might be aimed at detecting clear differences in density or shape. However, the reliability of these scans depends on the frequencies used, the depth of penetration, the type of bedrock, and the level of background noise. The mention of Doppler tomography means that part of the technique measures shifts in frequency caused by relative motion, which can indicate slight movements of structures or differences in reflectivity. Some approaches also use background seismic activity or ambient vibrations as a data source, letting the radar measure subtle changes in resonance. Because these signals can be faint and the environment is far from straightforward, the data interpretation is often quite challenging. Artifacts in the final image can emerge if the computational models are not perfectly aligned with real physical conditions. In online discussions about these recent claims, references to coils might represent spiraling patterns formed by how the signals bounce off inclined or curved surfaces. Without clear statements from recognized geological or archaeological teams, skeptics warn that such features in a processed image might not be physical pillars or mechanical components. They note that bedrock layering or fractures sometimes produce repeating patterns in radar scans that mislead non-specialists. Moreover, any new claims about multi-kilometer deep structures require major leaps in geological reasoning. Most known subterranean chambers in pyramid contexts do not approach that depth, and typical geological profiles around Giza do not support the notion of deliberately built pillars going far below the surface. Even so, some explorers point to older Egyptian legends of labyrinths below the plateau, sometimes mixed with references to Herodotus or travelers' accounts claiming there were hidden chambers and watery passages under the Sphinx area. The introduction of SAR Doppler tomography adds to the suite of modern scanning methods that might reveal unseen aspects of the Giza Plateau. While official research institutions prefer a measured approach to releasing data, and they usually present findings in academic journals or at recognized conferences, it is easy for partial or preliminary findings to make their way into the public sphere. Possible functions of a subterranean system. If there truly are large structures below the pyramid, several ideas have been suggested by those who lean toward alternative explanations. One notion is that these features could be remnants of an older civilization that predated the dynastic Egyptians, who then built the pyramid atop an existing foundation. Advocates of this scenario sometimes talk about major floods or earth shifts that force survivors of a great cataclysm to settle in the Nile Valley, eventually leaving behind advanced artifacts no longer recognized as conventional Egyptian construction. A second possibility championed by some is that these underground formations served as a reservoir or distribution network for energy or water. In attempts to connect it with Chris Dunn's power plant concept, a large-scale subterranean labyrinth might be viewed as part of a bigger machine. For instance, the pillars could be supports for large channel, or the coiled shapes could have hosted some cyclical fluid flow that interacted with the pyramid's interior to produce high-frequency vibrations or microwaves. Parallels are occasionally drawn to certain sites in the Andes or other ancient cultures where water-based engineering was vital, though the direct link to Giza remains speculative. Others posit that if the Great Pyramid was linked to star worship or cosmic alignments, then an elaborate subterranean complex could reflect a form of symbolic or ritual structure, maybe signifying an underworld domain. This would be consistent with Egyptian mythology, where the underworld played a huge role. The pillars would then be more symbolic than technical, aligning with older references to the Duat or other spiritual concepts that revolve around the afterlife and cosmic transitions. Though this perspective might fit with a religious lens, it still faces the question of how or why Egyptian records do not clearly mention such an enormous underworld site beneath the pyramid. One mundane, but still interesting possibility is that the scanning data is identifying geological anomalies that are not man-made at all. Giza's plateau is made of Mokattam Formation limestone, and variations in density or natural voids might appear in scans. Water infiltration from the Nile over many centuries could also create underground channels. If these channels are arranged in repeated patterns due to stratification or sediment flows, it might look orderly, leading some to imagine artificial design. Without direct excavation or more robust, repeated scanning from different teams using different methods, the actual nature of any alleged deep system remains in doubt. Zahi Hawass and Graham Hancock. Zahi Hawass is a prominent figure in modern Egyptology, serving at various times as the Minister of State for Antiquities Affairs in Egypt. He has been at the center of many high-profile discoveries and press announcements regarding ancient Egyptian sites. Known for his strong public persona, Hawass has often dismissed alternative theories related to the Great Pyramid, labeling them as fantasies unsupported by field evidence. He has clashed with various authors who propose that the Giza monuments contain hidden secrets that academia either refuses to acknowledge or actively suppresses. Graham Hancock is an English writer and journalist known for exploring alternative interpretations of archaeological and historical data. Though he does not always focus on the technical aspects of potential power systems, Hancock has argued that ancient civilizations could be far older than mainstream science accepts. His works delve into megalithic structures worldwide, drawing parallels that he believes indicate a once unified advanced society or shared source of ancient wisdom. The Great Pyramid's design and alignment, in his view, hint at knowledge connected to astronomy and perhaps lost technology. For years, Hawass was famously dismissive of Hancock's ideas. Recorded conversations and public appearances often saw Hawass refusing to engage in depth with Hancock's claims. However, some recent reports suggest the two have had friendlier exchanges, even though they still disagree on key interpretations. Hawass continues to represent orthodox opinions, emphasizing the vast array of tombs, artifacts, and inscriptions that place the pyramid firmly within the known constructs of the Fourth Dynasty. Hancock, on the other hand, remains open to the possibility of influences that stretch beyond standard timelines. In the context of newly announced scanning data, Hawass tends to discourage hype about enormous pillars or coil. He says these are misinterpretations or flat-out fabrications independent of recognized archaeological investigations. Hancock, while cautious about accepting unproven claims at face value, nonetheless sees each newly detected anomaly as a chance to think differently and possibly discover something that upends conventional timelines. If solid evidence arose of vast subterranean structures for advanced purposes, it would support Hancock's overall argument that we are missing huge chunks of human prehistory. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.